So I'm not even going to act professional here. I think we're just having a good time walking into this, trying to figure out how to make a podcast work. So everyone,
Accurate.
welcome into I Need the Nightlight. We are going to try to make all things horror relatable for you. We're sitting up here arguing over who leads in, who closes this shindig. So we're just going
winging
to.
it. We're just
I'm just hitting the
flying
button.
by the seat of our pants.
We're just
Yeah,
hitting the button.
good job.
That's what we're here for.
Just hit. Exactly.
So, as promised on last week's episode, we have been looking at a couple lists online for basically just horror recommendations. And during the month of November, IGN, for those that don't know, IGN normally is pretty much known for, in the past, video game publications, reviews, and things like that.
Did you mean in the month of October, not November?
It is October. See, this is very poor podcasting. So I'm in the month of November now, and I'm struggling. Yes, it would make more sense that it's October because it was Halloween. Thank you. This is what you're here for.
I got you.
So working through all of these lists, and what's funny too is the more we talk about this stuff, I crack up because I'll be randomly like, I'll have my kid at wrestling practice, and then my phone will buzz, and LaKrisha has found another top horror list or recommendations and stuff. It's like the algorithms are onto us now. They've heard us talking about this.
Y'all.
The phone is listening.
It is 100% because that's all that's there on mine now is like top horror movies of 2020, 2021, 2022. And I'm like, okay, we'll just look at all of them. It's fun.
And that's why I really kind of want to have these lists, because one of the big things that I've always wanted to set out for, and I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to make the perfect list.
No, yeah.
This next upcoming, not just the ranking, but this is a slightly different list. We've already talked about, as we progress towards next year, really wanting to kind of cultivate and make our own 31 Days of Halloween list. So naturally, if you're going to make that type of list, you're going to be looking at a lot of the top 25-ish, 30-ish horror movies of all time, or at least so you would think. But let's get real. You're also going to include probably Hocus Pocus and a couple of things like that. I mean, if you got a family, or even if you don't have a family, we like our Sanderson sisters, so naturally they got to be involved.
Yeah.
No, they got to be in there. So we've just started talking about that, and as we discussed in our initial episode, we've missed on a lot of stuff. And it's not so much just over the last 10 years, like I was echoing last time. When I started looking at this list, I was like, there's a lot of stuff that I've never seen at all, period. Like, one that we both talked about together was Poltergeist. I've never seen Poltergeist.
Just
you
recently
actually have now. You watched it last week. Recently. What's thoughts?
Yep.
Thoughts on Poltergeist?
So, and my husband and I had a debate about this because, so I was like, I'm going to watch Poltergeist, and like, I mean, it wasn't bad. I liked the premise. But like, it just wasn't my favorite. It's like, it had a lot of course, 80s effects, right? It was in the 80s. Obviously, it's going to have some 80s effects. But it wasn't super. I was slightly bored, I guess, a little bit. So then we had this big debate on it versus The Shining. But Poltergeist for me was very middle of the road. I think for the time it was probably super big. It had a lot of the really kind of spooky ghost engagement pieces that kind of evolved as the story went on and had some creepy like body horror kind of pieces to it. And there was also some funny pieces, which I mean, I kind of like to see in horror movies, but to me it just like did not rival like The Shining, which was similar time frame. To me, The Shining just like absolutely blew it out of the water when I'm thinking about like an actual horror movie that because The Shining still, I think
it's interesting that you bring those two together. Like you bring those two together as a comparison. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it was for me because the timeline, right? Like the time frames of them, they were both big horror movies in the 80s. They both have that kind of like creepy ghost prison-y type of thing. But to me, like The Shining now still today is creepy and still spooky, and like new people that would watch it now would still have that same feeling versus Poltergeist. To me now it's almost kind of just not as impactful as the times have changed, I guess.
Okay. See, and that's one of the things that a couple of us talked about at work the other day. We were kind of discussing the premise for what me and you were really wanting to set out and achieve with the podcast. And one of the first things that kind of came up, we were talking about movies from the 70s and 80s, and I was bringing up, things that I hadn't seen. They're like, well, you're not a real horror fan. I'm like, well, you're the reason that we're making this podcast.
You're the reason this is happening, because like horror's for everyone, no matter how many you watch.
That's why I loved it.
For everyone.
So Hollywood. I looked at Hollywood, and he looked at me, and he's like, they don't get it. But I thought it was fantastic. Just that little bit of banter right there. But we were talking about stuff from the 70s and 80s. And what really kind of also started it is I was telling them about a local haunted house that we went to. And I think I may have even touched on this in the first episode, where they were doing a very interesting depiction of The Exorcist. Not exactly The Exorcist, but it was a theater group that had put on this haunted house. So like they had the girl actually speaking in Latin, had a priest and things like that come out. And they didn't I talked to the producer of the haunt as we were walking out while they were still scaring the crap out of my kids. I kind of trailed in the back with them. And I was like, I love what you've done.
TikTok.
Oh yeah, it's great. So as we were walking through, I was like, I loved what you've done with the Exorcist piece. She's like, oh my God, thank you. She's like, people don't understand or know that it's the Exorcist. And I was like, it's a generational gap. It's a generational gap. And that's
it's crazy.
Well, once I looked at this list, and we'll crack it in just a second, it will make sense. It started to make sense to me how I could see that some of these kids have not seen this. Like even still this moment, my son really enjoys watching a lot of horror movies with us, but I don't even know that I would show him The Exorcist.
Yeah, you're getting into a little bit of dicey. Like The Exorcist is still, and it goes back, I think, to similar, like it's held up to the times a little bit better, I think, than some of the older horror movies. I think they're all great in their own aspects, right? Like, but I think things like The Exorcist that still, years down the road still can have that impact and that dread. I think that's what makes a huge difference. But
I think it's that trope too, though. Like everyone's afraid of demons. Everyone's afraid of possession. True. Everyone's afraid of stuff. Possession theme in the 70s and 80s is going to be the same today, essentially. I mean, look, they make it work with stuff like The Conjuring and Insidious and stuff like that, so it still resonates. Whereas you don't see so much as look what they've tried to do with the Halloween movies in recent years.
Yeah,
I
don't know because I've not watched them, but
so, some of them's good, some of them's fine. But some of them, like, there's some just franchises that I feel like once you've got so far, you've got that impact. It's time to let that go. Michael Myers may not be as terrifying now as he was, 76, 78, whenever he initially,
Well, Book Talk would say that he's attractive. He's impactful, but not in the same way that he was then.
Is he a book? So in like smutty Book Talk, is he a kink?
Listen, so any serial killer, murderer man with a mask on is gonna be a kink in Book Talk, honey. Like
that's fair.
The whole chasing him, through the woods. That's it's a big thing on Book Talk. Huge right now.
So that makes sense. So even still today, I've read and stuff where people still think Charles Manson is just like the sexiest thing in the world.
It's the creep factor, man. It's that spooky
There's something
kind
weird
of
about that.
Danger vibe. We all of us probably need a little bit of therapy for the bad boy things that we like. But, I think that's also what is part of what makes books and movies so great is you get to kind of step out into reality or out of reality and have that, man, I would really love to be chased down by this 6 foot some buff murder man who's going to tackle me in the woods. Like,
I don't feel that.
In reality, I'd probably poop my pants. Like,
I'm not relating there, but
you don't read my books. Just give me a minute and I'll convert you. No shame in here. This is a no shaming podcast.
No shaming. No shaming. So leading in, I think that is a good place to just turn away from that conversation.
Veer right back to the topic.
I'm going to pop up this list here. Alrighty. I love right off the bat, Bride of Frankenstein.
We're starting at the bottom.
I'm going to say this Evil Dead. We are starting at the bottom, which blows my mind. So IGN took this list to preface you're not going to see multiple entries from one franchise. So, like, for instance, right here, we see that they have put Scream at number 25, which I think is blasphemy.
Heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
This is their list. I'm not gonna be
We're not judging.
begrudging.
No shame.
No judging.
Shaming.
It's
We may
just
not
it would
agree,
be
though.
different. It would be different for me. It's okay to have
Me too.
healthy constructive criticism. But for instance, kind of what we were alluding to, you will not see Scream 2, Scream, whatever, anything else on here. If Halloween's on here, you're not going to see Halloween H2O, because for one, it's Halloween H2O. It would not be on top 25 horror list. But I digress. You're not going to see anything.
Ryan's judging.
I'm judging. Although I like Josh Hartnett. He's delivered in horror movies in the past.
It's true.
But right off the bat, 25, Scream. For me, this is top 3.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if, I would probably say it's in my top 3. It's actually, I was just watching it. It's literally on my TV, which you can probably see. It just like, it's aged well, I think, and it sticks with you, and it's got all kinds of it's got the bad boy vibe. Book Talk's a huge fan of Scream. You know, it's got everything I think that you would want in a good horror movie. So I would agree.
Like this, Billy and Stu.
Billy and Stu.
And my God, I guess I need to backtrack and say this. Spoiler alert. We're going to get into some spoilers here, but Matthew Lillard's character in this movie is a whole nother level for me. I love Rose McGowan. Nev is a queen. She is a goddess.
Yeah.
Even like the awkward relationship that flourished and came from Courtney Cox and David Arquette. This is where their marriage came from. Like everything about this movie. This is really my first horror movie, I guess, so to speak. The first one that I ever watched scarred me for life. And that's something I guess we could talk about later. But I don't do Chucky. I don't do dolls. We can get into that later.
It's good. Yeah, I think we would. It was well cast, though. There was this movie. Like, I think that's a huge part of a good, not even probably just horror, but like having a really good cast is huge.
This ensemble's fantastic here.
Yeah, like I think they did such an excellent job of putting people in the right roles to make the story even more impactful.
I agree entirely. Since I got on the topic of Chucky, I will go through this very quickly. If anyone ever recommends that I watch a Child's Play movie, I can't. I snuck, when I was small child, I grew up in a very religious background. My family, we didn't do the whole horror movies. I snuck and watched Child's Play when I was not supposed to. So that night, I crapped myself, didn't want to go to bed, and I went to my mom and dad's room, and I outed myself, told them that I snuck and watched it when I shouldn't have. And basically they said, "You're a big boy.
Go back to your room." Your fault?
When they say I'm a big boy, I was like 5.5, 6 years old. They're like, "You made a big boy decision. You're going to deal with the big boy consequences." So I go to bed, and I finally go to sleep. And my mother, God love her heart and all her infinite wisdom, took a porcelain doll, set it upright on my chest, looking at me, so that when I woke up in the middle of the night or in the morning, that would be the first thing that I saw.
Well, that's a life
lesson,
bro.
Day, I don't do dolls. And my mom thinks it's funny now. I'm like, do you not remember? Like some of they used to chase me with stuff like at work, like up and down the aisleways with dolls. And I would like run. My little legs don't move fast.
They don't.
Jackie and Chris chased me.
How did I miss that?
With a freaking Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist doll. Chased me all over the building.
Noted for future
but
reference.
I don't do that. I don't do dolls anymore, but I definitely do me some Scream. So to see it at 25, that broke my heart. So here's where I bring up the generational gap. Like we were talking about how like kids today probably don't watch The Shining, probably haven't seen The Exorcist, a lot of, your big tier horror movies. Yeah. Now they've probably seen Halloween and stuff like that because, there's still Halloween movies coming out today. Here's a generational gap for me. I've never seen Nosferatu.
I don't think I have either. I've seen clips of it. I may have watched it in film class when I was in high school, but that was like a really long time ago. So I don't really remember it. So don't really have any comment, but like I'm
I'm about
down with the
99%
theme.
positive this is silent film, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah, everything's silent. So it's just depiction on screen. Now, I've read some watched some documentaries and stuff on this movie about, Max Shrek and all this stuff, but
Yeah.
not seen it. So I can't really critique anything here. I don't know if this should be higher or lower. Wouldn't be on my list, but it's not in my kitchen.
Yeah, we can't really say if it would be on our list because we've not seen it, but like for it to be impactful enough for this group of people to put it on this list and it be a silent film, that's low key impressive. Like,
well, I mean, it's 100 years old. So if it's making that, you look at it, you think 1922.
I didn't pay attention. Listen, Ryan, it's still 2000. Okay,
that's what I keep thinking in my head. But this thing's 101 years old now. So
that's crazy. So we need to go watch that.
I was about to say. So this is for us moving forward. This is our homework. If we ain't seen it, we're putting it on the list. This is our
Where
homework.
do you find it, do you think?
God, I don't know.
We'll
this thing ain't streaming anywhere.
Find it.
Probably some German library in Munich or something with all these German names on here. But The Blair Witch.
I have seen that. Watched it when I was really young.
If you watched it when you were really young, it probably jacked you up.
I mean,
now,
yes
when
and
you
no, I guess.
Really young, did you see this when it came out in '99, or was this like a 2007 type thing? When you
No,
really
it
young?
was probably a couple years after it came back out, so like early 2000s. So I was probably like 10, 11 when I watched it. And my dad used to shout out to my dad, I guess. Great parenting there, but he used to we used to watch all these movies that like my mom would not let me watch. Mom would be like, no, you can't watch these. And I would go to my dad's and he'd be like, heck yeah, you can watch it. And so I watched the Blair Witch Project. Didn't help that like he lived in McRoberts, so teeny tiny town out in the middle of the woods. And we used to play we used to play like out in the woods. So like low key after that, I didn't want to be in the woods at night for a little while. I was okay like watching it until then I went outside. And that's when it started to mess with me because like in the house it was fine, but you go out in the woods and like, we live in the middle of these really thick woods. And that's when it really freaked me out. And it hung with me for a couple of years. And then I forgot about it and I've never watched it again. Maybe that's why it stopped hanging with me. It doesn't hold up for me.
If you go back and you watch it now, it doesn't do the same thing. That's just me.
I could see that.
Plus, I think part of this was tarnished because I can't remember which scary movie it is, but when I'm not saying like scary movie, I mean like the title Scary Movie, like with the Wayans brothers and stuff, where they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so scared," and their nose just keeps running like a faucet onto the camera. Now, when I think of Blair Witch, I don't even think of Blair Witch anymore. I think of that scary movie.
You can't take it seriously because you think of the spinoff. Yeah, it wouldn't be in my top
one of those
25,
movies.
Though.
No, probably not in mine, but it's one of those ones once you see it, you're done with it. Like,
not like
a lot of people
try
to spin it off like
valid.
It was a real found footage film and things like that. And all of a sudden, a couple years later, they actually have a really, really, really bad B rate. I can't remember what the name of whatever the second sequel.
I think it would just make me like car sick. Now.
I know I keep showing this on screen. Like, I promise I'm not sick or there's anything going on here. My daughter likes to color on me with highlighters. So there's that. I would take my hat off because my hair. All right, let's see if this shows on screen. Can you see it?
It's nice little. Lift your head up. You're too far down.
Better there.
Yeah, there you go.
She said, "Daddy, you're bald. I want you to have hair." Yeah, she wanted me to match you tonight.
Dad, we're twinning.
What, Bo? Don't worry about it. I'm recording, sir.
And that's cameo from the kids. Life with
your sister colored my head blue in the bald spot to try to give me hair. He's like, "What? Huh? What's going on?"
He's so confused.
Cultural gap.
I have seen this one.
I have seen this one. Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page. I used to buy, at one point you could go to Walmart and they had like the Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi sets that you could buy on DVD. And I had all of them at one point. I don't know what happened to them, but I loved this rendition of Dracula, which is also coming up on 100 years. No, I think we've said enough about Dracula. I don't know what it caught, but it's 100 years old. I like it. Probably not on my top 25.
Yeah, it's a good one, but yeah,
I
probably
think
not my top
25
25
is a
either.
hard list to make.
It is. I agree.
It's a hard amount of movies to really kind of. This would be on my top 10 or top 25. Have you seen 28 Days Later?
I don't. So like, I don't know. I think I've seen like bits and pieces of it, but I don't think I've actually ever seen the whole movie. Isn't there like a Sandra Bullock movie about her in rehab that's something about 28 days?
So
I
I
think,
think
but
so. I
no,
think it's just called
I don't
28
remember.
Days.
Oh, okay. I've seen that one. I don't really think that I've seen this movie other than a clip here and there. Sorry.
All right, so this one's getting added to your list. A lot would argue
It's
that
zombies,
this.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. It's disease, zombie esque. But a lot of people would argue that this is. You have your Romero loyalists that love Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, stuff like that. This is easily a top 3 zombie flick, in my opinion. You have A Train to Busan, which is up
Never
there.
heard of. Nope, haven't watched it.
Oh, that's going on your list. For
My
me, it'd
list
be
is
Train to
already
Busan.
big.
It's getting bigger. 28 Days Later is definitely on there. 28 Weeks is okay, but 28 Days is phenomenal. It definitely needs to be on your list. I
I don't
think you would
think I've
absolutely love
heard
it.
of 2 of the 3 that you just mentioned. So 28.
You've not
Did you
heard
say
Train to
28
Busan?
weeks?
28 Weeks Later is the sequel to 28 Days Later.
I'm getting some deja vu about those, but no. But I've never heard about this
It's not
train
Sandra
movie.
Bullock.
I know it's not Sandra Bullock, but I do remember that movie. But okay, they're added to my list.
But 28
And then
Days
I
Later
can
is
come back
phenomenal.
and comment later on that.
We will come back. Are you familiar with, I can't even pronounce his first name, Cillian Murphy?
Do you have a picture? Because I'm not great with names. I'll Google him later. The name doesn't sound familiar, but
You will know him when you see him.
probably.
He is in,
Listen,
oh
I
my
couldn't remember
God.
those two. Who did I get confused the other day? Like, you
So
think I'm going to remember this person's name when I couldn't even remember or what
Murphy is
Quentin
the guy
Tarantino
that
looked like?
plays, yeah, it's true. Murphy is the guy that played the lead of Oppenheimer in the new Oppenheimer film.
I've
Did you
not
watch the
watched
Batman
that.
movies? Oh, my
Wait,
God.
I have seen some of the Batman movies, yes.
All
Which
right, he
Batman
is
movie?
Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
I've not watched that one. Listen, I got burnt out on the Batman, okay? Sorry. He's my least favorite superhero.
Give me 1 second and then we'll move on because I'm drawing a blank right now and I cannot remember the name of this TV show, but it's huge. Is it Peaky Blinders? Yes, Peaky
Oh, is
Blinders.
he the main guy in Peaky
The
Blinders?
main guy from Peaky Blinders.
Ooh,
You
listen,
can't
Book
tell it
Talk
from this
found him
image.
too.
You can't tell from this image right here, but this
That's
is
him?
your man from Peaky Blinders. Yes.
Oh, but he was young because it was like 20 years ago.
20
oh my
years
God,
ago.
I feel old. Okay, on
But
my
he
list,
is the
I'll
lead in
definitely
this
watch it
movie.
now.
The
Nope,
Fly.
haven't seen this one.
Not seen
I
The
saw
Fly.
a clip the other day though on TikTok, and it like was a little bit freaky. So
It holds up. What if I told you this
who's
has
that?
Jeff Goldblum in it?
Yeah, so that's him, right? Like the Fly guy is Jeff Goldblum,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So TikTok showed me this the other day. It's the only reason I know that. But I do want to watch it because I saw that clip and it like was a little bit. I was like, oh, I think I can get behind this. So it is on my list also. All these movies that are on my list are old.
I could understand why this is on a top 25 list.
Because it's still like
No,
feels like
here
it would hit you with the like. Okay, Wolfie, listen, real upset that there's not more werewolf movies. I feel like I can make a whole episode on that later, but I do like this movie.
I love American
Not
Werewolf.
my top werewolf one, but
What's
I
your
do
top
like
werewolf flick?
I don't know that I could pick a top one. Give me a second to think. Probably. Now I can't think of the name of it. So I like what was it, the Little Red Riding Hood one? With Amanda Seyfried in it. I like that one.
Okay.
And then I also like the Wolfman. Is that what it's called with Benicio del Toro in it? I like that one.
I think so. I definitely thought you would have said Ginger Snaps.
Listen, I haven't seen Ginger Snaps since I was probably in high school. And it scared the crap out of me. When I was like a freshman or something maybe, but it did make an impact on me. I know, Ryan, you're going to fuss at me already because you know I've not seen this one, and it's already on my list.
So this is what got us started even talking about movies.
It did.
Like,
Yep.
we were just randomly talking one day about vampire and werewolf lore and movies and things like that. And I asked her, I said, have you seen Let the Right One In? Have you seen this movie? She's like, I have not. I was like, so the
I hadn't
American
even heard of
version,
it, actually.
there is an American version that you probably have heard of. It's called Let Me In, that has
I have heard of that
Chloe
one.
Grace Moretz in it. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Great movie. I love it. This is just
Is this the
better.
other version? Like this,
Yes.
what is it,
I,
Swedish or
I think it's
something?
Swedish. Yeah, from like the Oscar. It's like Swedish or Norwegian or something like that. I wanted to say it's Swedish. But this movie is phenomenal. Anyone
I do
that's
want to
not
watch
seen
it.
it that does not have issues with subtitles, like, don't do a dubbing of this.
So is it a dubbing? Is it a dubbed?
It's
Like, or is
foreign.
it just
It's foreign
so
language.
it's not like it's not dubbed though, right? It's just like foreign with subtitles.
You can, yes, that's the way I
I
would
don't want the dubbed
prescribe
version
watching it. Don't
because I
dub
can't do
this movie.
dubbed. It annoys me. It takes me out of the moment. Like I can't do it. So
I watched it in
I'll do it the other
subtitles
way.
and then went back later to watch it dubbed, and it didn't resonate the same way.
Yeah, it
So
takes it away. Okay, on my list.
definitely do the
Everybody has said it's
subtitles.
really good.
That's phenomenal. This would be in my top 25, hands down.
Never even heard
So
of this movie.
I never heard of this genre of movie. So this is something I'm going to start really digging into. It's an Italian movie, and anybody that wants, if there is anybody watching this episode and wants to like correct me on this, I want to say that this genre is called giallo. Yep, right here it is, giallo.
And what does that mean?
Giallo. I'm still
You
trying to
don't
figure
know,
out
do
what that
you?
means. It's
Okay.
like a murder mystery type scenario,
Oh,
to the
interesting.
best of my understanding. I've heard, I want to say it's this movie is compared to Black Swan to a degree. Like,
Ooh, funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking about Black Swan the other day and if it was considered like horror. Like,
I think it would
so
be niche, kind of borderline giallo esque from what I was reading, because I'd never heard of this genre. One of my favorite TikTok creators was going through and talking about like her favorite movie from each genre. It wasn't this movie. I think this one is considered like the
the
top of
top.
the mountain, yeah, for that version of film or that genre of film. But I think she also went with an Argento movie. I've never seen anything by
Hmm,
Dario Argento, but I hear his movies are fantastic. But this is on my list to watch.
yeah, it sounds interesting.
But if you look at most top 25 lists that are unified, this is on there.
Oh, cool. So it's across the.
Dawn of the
I
Dead.
have seen this movie.
Have you seen the '04 or the old Romero one?
I think I've seen both of them.
Both are equally great.
I don't, I'm gonna be real honest. I don't remember a lot about them because, to be quite frank with you, these just aren't my favorite type of horror movies. Like,
Zombie movies does not strike me
yeah,
as your
it's not my
wheelhouse.
thing. I watch them and like they're all right, but like I'm gonna watch it once and I'm probably never watching it again. Just because like it's just not my favorite. I would rather go for something murdery or I like the whole we
Okay.
talked about this. I like the whole exorcist demon thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't watch a lot of zombie movies, and if I do, it's a one and done, and I don't tend to remember a lot about them. So I don't really remember a lot about this movie.
So here's the part about this list, and I'm going to check on this afterwards, but I'm pretty sure that they are speaking to the '04 because it clearly says '04. And it definitely says Snyder. This is the '04 Dawn of the Dead, but I'm fairly certain this is a stock
Yeah,
image from the Romero flick.
I was about
This
to
is
say that
not.
doesn't look like it correlates to the '04
I think
movie,
someone
but
messed up right here. It's been a while since I've seen the Romero one. Me personally, I love the Romero one. I watched it in film class when I was in high school, or it was high school or early college. Love the flick. It's basically just a big, huge bash on consumerism. It's weird. Like Romero attacked certain things.
now this is one of my faves.
Never seen it.
That shocks me with you, like, because this was such a big, like, it's always
It
mentioned hand in
bothers me.
hand. Yeah,
It
like with like
bothers me.
Halloween and like it's always mentioned with them. So it's funny to me that you haven't seen it. This movie absolutely terrorized me and I was terrified to sleep like for years because of just like the whole premise of the, he's going to be in your dream and you can't get out once you're in there, and then you're going to die in the real world. Like, and I think
And
it's
I
still
love
held up
Craven.
well. Yes, like also a big Craven fan when I remember that he's done something, but typically when I like a movie, oftentimes it's him. But great one. It would definitely be in my top 25. It would probably be in like my top, probably at least top 10, maybe top 5. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
I
He's my
don't have an
favorite
answer. I don't
slashers.
have an answer for why I've never seen this. Now, the only thing that I've ever seen with him in, and it does not count, is Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, no, doesn't count.
Mm-mm.
No.
So
He's but like between him, Jason, and like Michael Myers, I'm a Freddy girl.
I know
Hands
a lot
down.
of people that's why, because I mean he has more charisma. I mean, obviously he
Yeah, and it's
speaks.
just, yeah, and
So
he like just messes with your mind and he's in your dream. And that's just a little bit scarier to me, I think. It's that
even
it
without
crosses
saying it,
from supernatural, kind of.
I know so much about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's too. Robert Englund is entrenched in horror lore,
Yeah. Oh,
popular
yeah.
lore. Like it's just Robert Englund's a legend. So
It's a cult
there's that.
classic for sure. Like
And everyone, like
100%.
I've not even seen it. I know what happens to Johnny Depp. Like I know what happens in the
And
movie,
Johnny
but I've
Depp.
never picked it up and watched it beginning to end. Well, we've already been here. We're not going to waste time
Wouldn't be in
talking
my
about
top
this.
25.
I've not seen it yet.
You should watch it just to say you did, but like it wouldn't be in my top 25.
I'm going to add it's another one that I just, for some reason, I've never picked it up. This is too low for me.
I don't think that I have watched this, to be honest with you. I do. I love Kurt Russell.
You will love Kurt Russell in this.
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of him. I honestly didn't even realize he was in it until the other day when we were talking. And I was like, oh my God, Kurt Russell's in this movie. And then he was in that other movie that we talked about. And like, I didn't even realize that. So it's on my list to watch. So
for the other movie that we were kind of talking through, I've been on a big kick of going back through and watching Grindhouse. For anybody that's not seen Grindhouse, check that out.
I've not watched any of them. So
if you're a Tarantino fan or Robert Rodriguez or anything like that, like
we need a
Sin
whole
City
episode on
comes
that
to
whole
mind.
circle that I got
Yeah,
stuck
like
in the other day.
we got stuck in a Tarantino loop the other day. If it wasn't a Tarantino or a Rodriguez movie, they were either in it or had some type of producing capabilities
Some type of
tied to it. It was
connection.
crazy. It was crazy.
And I had no idea.
This is a top 3 for me.
Oh, interesting. I definitely want to watch it then.
It's a top.
I mean, I want to watch it
for me.
anyways, but for you to have it that high, that's interesting for me.
It is a top 3 for me. Now, the one that came out years later,
I didn't watch
I
it
want to
either.
say it was in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It's a prequel.
Oh, really? I don't like when they
It's
do that
interesting.
sometimes. Did you like it?
The movie was okay.
Okay.
Right? Like I enjoyed the movie. There's a lot of fan servicing in it that tied back to this one.
But like good fan servicing or bad? In the middle?
Without giving up anything, I will say the last 3 minutes of that movie and the first 3 minutes of this one.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's not terrible. Okay.
It ties in. It ties in very well, but this will be top 3 for me. Texas Chainsaw, the OG, 1974.
I don't know that I've seen the 1974 one. I can't remember. Who's
it's
in
freaky.
It?
You wouldn't
I'm trying to remember if I've
seen
this one. You know, I'm terrible at names. I don't know why I was like, oh, let me get closer so I can read it because I'm not going to know who they are anyways.
A lot of people from our
Texas
generation
Massacre.
watched the
I've seen
one
the
with Jessica Biel.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I've seen. I don't know that I saw this one, but I did like that
It's
one.
not
bad. But I haven't seen the original, so I can't really comment on how good it was. Now, the premise of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, though, is like a great horror story, and I'm also a serial true crime person, so I love those. That's the actual movies tying into true crime stuff. So, but I've not seen this one to be able to comment.
It's good. That one's going on your list. Now, this one at number 11,
I didn't like it.
I have seen, and this would not be in my top 25.
Yeah,
this is like I'm not a Polanski fan. That's just me. No knocking anybody. I like Mia Farrow's role in this movie. This movie is the slowest of slow burns for me.
I started watching it it wasn't the other day. It was a while back. And I kept stopping.
Yeah.
because I couldn't really get, I guess, I don't know if I couldn't just get bought into the
This
story
type of
or,
movie, give me The Omen instead
yeah, not, I
over
did like
Rosemary's
The
Baby.
Omen. Yeah,
Give me The
I would
Omen
agree
over
with that.
Rosemary's Baby. This wouldn't probably even touch my top 50. Now, I'll probably get some backlash for this, but it's not my cup of tea. Not my movie. Now, this, it's fantastic.
I have seen this one. I don't remember a lot about it.
You got to go
But
back.
yeah, I mean, just like, it's just not, I mean, I don't know that I would put any zombie movie in my top 25. Just
That's
because,
fine. Like, and
yeah,
that's
it's just not my
something
scene.
we will definitely speak to later. But that's like, it's hard for anyone to agree. We'll come back to that in a moment. I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole just yet. Evil Dead.
I have seen it.
I love me some Bruce Campbell.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I like Bruce Campbell. Like, I don't know why, but I do tend to like them. Probably these over other zombie movies, like in that whole vibe. Like,
This one's kind of zombie-esque. Not, I
yeah,
mean,
it's like,
it's more. I
it's
mean,
like
it's
in
the
the middle.
Deadites. It's hard to explain, really. I love Bruce Campbell. I love this movie. Uh, I like the campiness that's in the second one. Like the
I
first
love
one tried to go
campy.
straight up horror, like it wanted to be a horror movie. The
Yeah.
second movie wanted to be a horror movie, but they kind of realized, damn, this is kind of funny. Then they, at the end of it, they're like, all right, let's just go Army of Darkness and just do full on horror
Oh,
comedy.
Army of Darkness. I so enjoyed that movie.
Army of Darkness is phenomenal. This Evil Dead top 10ish, top 15 for me. I don't know if it'd be all
Oh,
up there.
now right here. Oh yeah. See, this is my jam. This stuff right here is where, like, I've seen this movie a million times. Like,
This movie tried so hard. They tried
I
so
liked
hard
it.
to not have this considered to be a horror movie.
But it can't not be.
But you got to think,
Not
like
be.
in the 90s, like horror was dead in the early 90s.
That's true.
It was dead. And like if you got labeled as a horror movie, it was like the kiss of death before you went to the box office.
That's
So
true. I mean,
I
I was born that year,
understand why
so
they tried to. God, I'm old.
just saying.
I'm old. But you can't beat Hannibal Lecter. See, my
He's
wife
so
is a
good.
big fan of Red Dragon. Like, I've not seen Red Dragon yet. I've seen Silence of the Lambs. I've seen Hannibal.
I've not seen
I've
Red
not
Dragon
seen Red
either.
Dragon. She
I
likes
watched, I
Red
think,
Dragon
part of
more than
it.
Hannibal,
Oh,
but nothing
okay.
beats Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, it would definitely be in my top 25, probably my top 10.
I would say probably a little bit. It's in my 6 to 10 range.
Anthony Hopkins just killed in that role, I think. He was so good. Jaws. Okay, listen. I've seen Jaws a million times. I just watched it the other day. And can I say, if you put me in a swimming pool on an inner tube watching Jaws, I'm gonna be scared that he's gonna come eat my butt. Straight up.
This movie does nothing for me.
But like, I don't consider it a horror movie. Like,
I don't either. No,
for
no
me, it's not a
anxiety
horror
for
movie.
me.
Yeah,
Which is weird because I
yeah.
would consider Piranha a horror movie. I mean, Jaws is
Really?
definitely a creature
Well,
feature,
yeah.
but it's just.
I don't even think of it as a creature feature. To me, it's just like I don't know what I consider it, but like, I wouldn't put it in a horror bucket. But I get why it is, I guess. But like, for me, I wouldn't consider it in my top horror movies. I enjoy it, and I still like watching it. I quote it randomly all the time, but I wouldn't consider it a horror movie.
Not my jam. Whew.
I think I have a problem with like things like this in horror movies. I think I always want to bucket out creature features separately, except I don't consider werewolf things. I don't know. I get weird there, I think. I do like this movie. Sigourney
Top
Weaver, I
3.
think, did excellent. I don't know if it'd be my top 3, but it would definitely be probably my top 10.
Top 3
Great
for
movie.
me. We had an
She's
argument the
great.
other day. It was nonsensical. But we were talking about horror movies and stuff like this. Like, I consider Alien a horror movie. I do not consider Aliens a horror movie. Like, this is sci-fi horror. Aliens, to me, is sci-fi action. Like, it just becomes like colonial marines, like space marines blowing stuff up. So the reason it kind of fell into a conversation is like, it's the same thing as Terminator. Like, in the Terminator, like, if you give him a Michael Myers mask,
I've not
It's a
watched The
horror
Terminator.
movie. Well, then
Well,
this does
okay.
not
I
resonate for you
shouldn't
at
say
all.
I haven't watched it because I've watched like parts of it, but I've never sat down and watched the whole entire movie.
It's an endless chasing.
Yeah, like,
Just an
and I know
endless
what
chasing.
happens. Like, I'm kind of like you were with like the Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I know what happens. Like, and
It's
I've
just
seen.
pop culture.
Yeah, but like, it's to me. I don't know. I guess I never had a reason to want to watch it. I guess I don't know.
I think this line that they use right here, I mean, it's perfect. I just had it. Basically, how they're explaining that they really feel like less is more with this movie.
Yeah.
And then later, they kind of figured out that we're probably making this over convoluted. Less is more approach that later sequels sadly abandoned. I read that line multiple times the other day when reading through this list, and I was like, I couldn't agree more. But God, I love this movie.
It is a good movie.
Never seen this.
I watched it in film class in high school. For me, honestly, like, it again goes back to, like, for me, this isn't a horror movie. Like, I get why it is, and I get especially, like, in the time frame that it was around, why it's considered a horror movie, and I did enjoy it. But for me, I guess if I'm thinking about a list of, like, not maybe my preferential horror movies, but more of a list that, like, shaped
This is
and,
a
like,
critically
built that
acclaimed
foundation.
horror list. Yeah.
It's like how like horror started making the footprint and the impact that I could get
In the
behind, but
industry.
as far as like my enjoyment, it wouldn't be on there, if that makes sense. It's a cute little movie. I enjoyed it.
Like when I had like, you know, those DVDs and stuff that I had, you know, the Karloff sets and Lugosi sets, stuff like that. I never had one that had this in it, shockingly. I guess that's why I've never watched it. But I can honestly say in my heart of hearts, I have no desire.
Well, you should anyways, because you're going to make me watch ones that I don't have any desire to watch, like
Fair
10,000
enough.
zombie movies.
Fair enough.
See, for me, this is too high. Halloween's too high for me. Only because, like, I would put Nightmare on Elm Street above it. Now, I totally get why it's as high as it is, because, like, one, Jamie Lee Curtis, Queen of the Scream Queens. Like, and she's great. I think she did a great job in the movie. I liked the movie. But for me, there's just other ones that I like a little bit more. But it would definitely be in my top 5.
This is the slasher flick that started it all. For me, that started it all. I love the movie. It's in my top 10.
She's great. It was just well done across the board.
It's phenomenal. I know a lot of people that love this movie.
So I watched this also in my film class. We watched a lot of old movies in my film class, if you can't tell. I was in high school. I liked it. I think it, especially again for the time that it was in, that I could see the appeal and why it's on this list. Because again, it's one of those that like still to this day people talk about, and there's a big fan base for it. It's a Hitchcock. And so it was good. I don't know if I might put it in my top 25 just because of the principle of it. And I did like it.
Some people consider this their number 1.
No, it could definitely be
like
number
their
1.
Numero uno, their number 1. Some people consider it that.
I could see that.
I'm not one of them.
Me neither.
I like it. I don't hate it. I don't love it.
It was great, especially again timeline stuff. Like it's an impact. Yeah, I love this movie.
This makes sense to me.
It makes sense to you for it to be 2?
Yes.
I mean, it would definitely be.
Would you have it higher? Or lower?
See, like, listen, because I know what number 1 is on this list.
Number 1 is a deserving number 1.
I'm conflicted there.
So is this your 1 and 2? You're sweating.
I'm sweating. Like, gosh, I don't know why I got this sweatshirt on. Like, you're making my pit sweat. So, like, for me, when it comes to horror movies that I think, like, helped make me into, like, the creepy, spooky girl that I am today, this movie had much more of an impact on me than the one that's in number 1.
Okay.
So, for me, yes, this would be above the one that's in number 1. Because for my horror experience and my journey, this was much more of an impact to me than the one that's in number one. Now, the one that's in number one is great, phenomenal, but I didn't watch it until probably in the last maybe 10 years. And I've been watching The Exorcist, since I was a preteen. So, like, for me,
It's understandable.
it's much more impactful to me. And
So
still
this is
today,
your one.
probably, honestly, it would probably be my number one. I still
wouldn't
love
fault
it.
anybody for that. I would not fault anybody for saying this is their number one.
I feel guilty saying it a little, but like I can't help it.
No.
Because I know the one that's in one. Honestly, I don't even know if the one that's in one would be my number two, to be honest with you. It's a great one. It's great.
See, here's the thing, like
Jack Nicholson,
not
man, killed
intentionally,
it.
but like look at the wallpaper in this. I feel like I'm living
You did
in
that.
the
We
Overlook Hotel.
totally did this on purpose, everyone. We talked about this in detail about if we were going to let this wallpaper show, and it works. The vibe works for what we're talking about today.
It feels like I'm living in Overlook Hotel.
Can you please put one of your children on a tricycle? And just...
I've got one out back.
Yeah,
we can definitely bring it in here right now. So Brittany's got shoes that has each one of the twins on each foot. And it has the wallpaper as the sides. They're Vans. Coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
I would wear those. This movie just like...
It's her favorite movie of all time, period.
It has so many great things in it. So many great things. I've read the book too. And honestly, this is probably one of the few instances where I say that like I enjoyed the movie as much as the book. If not,
see, that's a hot topic.
It is, because like for me, usually the book wins hands down. This is probably one of the few movies where I think that although there were some things that were a little bit different, right? And like essentially just kind of some of the undertones on what's happening and why it's happening that are different in the book. But I think they did it really well to a way that like they paid homage in a way that was good.
What if I told you that Stephen King hates this movie?
He hates it. I know.
He hates it.
But see, you've got
He hates what Kubrick done with it.
It's because he did change it. Like, well, not change it, but change it also. Because the whole thing that is driving Johnny, here's Johnny, it's different, right? Like than the book, than the movie. But to me, like the experience of the book and the experience of the movie were both really, really good. So I think I went into this, which I try to go into a lot with books and movies, is not expecting it to be exactly like the book and accepting the creative license sometimes that happens for the director's vision, because there's going to be those variances. So I think with that in mind is why that I think I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed the book. If that makes sense.
Kubrick's just a nod dude anyways. He's an odd bird.
Which is what made it great, though.
I love Clockwork Orange and stuff like that.
I've never watched Clockwork Orange.
You would love Clockwork Orange. You would be all about it. Like Jack Torrance as a character. About. We'll settle that off there. But I'm telling you right now, Torrance is a character. Because if we get to begin to try to explain Clockwork Orange to you, we're going to be another 45 minutes into this.
We're going to spiral.
It's going to spiral. I mean, that's pretty much what the movie is. But this list was interesting to me. It really was.
Yeah.
I even had a couple people kind of come into the office and we were just kind of talking about stuff, and they were kind of looking at our whiteboard and things like that. And I'm like, they're like, oh, top 25. Well, what's number one? Halloween. I'm like, funny you should say that. I said, nope. See if you can guess the top three. And nobody could come up with these three as the top three, which kind of surprised me.
It is interesting, but I think it's a lot of people I think have seen it, but it's got that cult following. But a lot of people these days lean toward, when they're talking about the greatest horror movies, a lot of times they do lean toward, Halloween and the slasher side of it.
Or recency bias.
Interesting.
They like newer stuff. Like, for instance, on this list, I love Get Out. What was
the newest movie on here?
The newest movie...
Was it 2004?
73, 60, 78. I would almost guarantee that it is probably 28 days later. 91,
one was
87.
2004. Was there any... Isn't that interesting, though, that this movie is all older movies? 2004.
So 2004, Dawn of the Dead's probably
When
the
was
most
28
recent.
Days Later?
Oh no, Let the Right One In
Oh,
is
Let the Right One In was
2008.
2000. Yeah, so
2002.
2008. So still, that's a really long time ago.
Only 3 movies post 2000 on this list.
That's kind of crazy to think about. But it's changed a lot. And a lot of it's remakes too, almost. Like, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Also, what's the context of the list too, I think goes into it, right? Of like, is this a just enjoyable list, or was this a really let's talk about the movies that were the most impactful to the horror genre?
See, this list to me seems like cultural impact.
Yeah, for sure. I think so.
And kind of what you were alluding to a while ago, and I said we were going to kind of save that little segue to later, is you're like, it's also based on what you're into. Like, you are not into zombie films. So
No.
anything Romero based, anything like 28 Days Later, or 28 Days Later, you got me hooked on that Sandra Bullock
B.
reference. I can't get Sandy B out of my head right now. So anything like that's not going to resonate well with you.
Right.
For me, I'm much more into sci-fi horror. As you can tell with like The Thing and Alien being the two that I'm like would be in my top 5.
Yeah, we just like different things. It's interesting, like,
but that's
like
awesome. That's how I like that it plays out. Yeah, but we both love the Lost Boys. Like, we both have a general shared love for like the vampire creature feature. Like, I love even some what many would consider bad vampire movies. I'm into them. Like, I love 40 Days of Night, and there's 30
I was
Days
like,
of
are
Night.
you
30
gonna
Days
say
of
you
Night.
love Twilight?
I love me some sparkly vamps.
Vampires don't sparkle.
I've seen them all. I'm not going to say that I haven't.
I mean, same, and I read all the books, but like, your girl's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer girl. I've got multiple tattoos about it. Like, that's where my love for, vampires and werewolves and things like that came from. But like, so a lot of mine, I think, would lean more towards that, and lean more towards like my comfort movie is The Conjuring. Having a bad day, I turn The Conjuring on.
So I think that's that kind of spurns an interesting topic. Before we go to close, if you had to putting you on the spot,
Don't do
top
that
3,
to me. I'm sweating
not
again.
cultural, top 3.
So just my enjoyment. Is that what
for
you
your
wanted?
enjoyment,
Like,
your
my
personal top
enjoyment.
3 favorite? Yes.
Okay. I'm
your
sweating.
enjoyment.
Okay, so it would be The Conjuring not my number 1. The Exorcist would be my number 1.
Okay.
God, that's hard. 3 is hard. My number 2 would probably be The Conjuring. And then my number 3, and this is just enjoyment, ones I go back to, not ones that scared the pants off of me. Because The Nun, I've watched one time, absolutely scared the living crap out of me. I made my dog sleep in a totally another room because he was black and white like The Nun. And my number 3 would probably be Scream. Just my enjoyment. Yeah, like. Yeah,
it's my
so good, but
just the franchise as a collective whole. It's my one.
Scream. Yeah, I love Scream, and my bad boy fetish comes out there. But like, The Exorcist for me, just I think made such an impact on me and who I am now, and like why I love the things I do. And then The Conjuring is my comfort zone. I know it's a weird comfort zone, and then Scream is my. It's weird because I kind of went in through like some different buckets there. Like I was
I would love
Demon.
to see a list of anybody that says you can't pick anything prior to 2000, and just make people pick 2000 current. I would love to see what that list would look like.
Yeah,
I would love to see what that type of list would look like, because I think Get Out falls on that type of list. I think you start looking at people that are really into stuff like the Terrifier. I think that stuff kind of crops in. I'm really hoping, just representing here, I'm hoping at some point that makes its rounds and people can enjoy Psycho Silico. But yeah, it would be Scream for me.
You got to do.
Scream.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to do yours.
Scream's 1. 2 would be The Thing. Number 3.
I feel like you thought about this and you put me on the spot.
Actually, I hadn't. This is going to sound really weird, and really, really, really odd, but I loved it as a child. Children of the Corn.
Do you know I've
I
never
love
watched
Children
it?
of the Corn.
Never watched
Love it. A lot of people don't consider it all that fantastic, but like, there's something about it. I
Kids
love
are
that
creepy,
movie.
yo.
Them creepy little kids jack me up. But like, I know a lot of people that's really into Saw, things like that. I think would fall on the list post 2000. Maybe that's something we
Yeah,
need
that
to
would be
look into.
interesting.
Kind
Yeah, I
of
think it
craft our own
is,
list.
like, looking at a list. Now, I did actually, my somebody else I work with, he had listened to it, and he actually sent me lists of the top movies for, like, 2023, and he goes, like, he's a huge, huge movie fan. Not necessarily all horror, but, and he was giving me some tips on some horror movies, but they've got some lists too that are more recent, so I think that would be interesting to look at to see, do we feel like some of those were more impactful than some of the OGs for sure.
My biggest thing right now, I'm all about some impact, but right now I just want to be entertained. I think coming back,
Yeah.
having stepped years away from being able to watch a whole lot of movies, I just want to be entertained where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's valid.
So that's my big thing. I've not seen The Conjuring. Like, you went to The Conjuring. That's not something I've seen. I definitely want
Loved
to
it.
pick up those flicks, but also the reason I haven't is there's some type of correlation to a freaking doll in those movies, and I don't
Well,
do
it's super
dolls.
minimal. Like it's pretty minimal. I mean, they mention Annabelle, but like it's
I'm
it's
working on that. Me and my
it's not
wife have
huge.
talked baby steps, but I think
Oh yeah,
sometime within the
she
next little
probably
bit.
doesn't. Has she watched The Conjuring? Because I know she doesn't like
She
necessarily
doesn't
that.
do possession
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say
anything
that's
demonic,
not
so like
typically
The
her.
Exorcist has kind of always been off the table for her. I don't
Yeah.
think she's ever seen it or has any desire to see it. But like, I've been wanting her to watch one set came out in somewhere between 2011 2013. It's a completely reimagined Evil Dead. And my God, that movie was awesome. I freaking love that movie. I'm really wanting her to check that out. I've still not seen Evil Dead Rises yet. I need to check it out, but
Oh, I did watch that. Right? Is that
did you
wait?
like it?
Evil Dead Rises. Is that the
I
most
think
recent
it
one that
came out
came out
this
with the
year.
mom? Like with the
Mm-hmm.
mom and the so yeah, me and Taylor watched it actually. We went somewhere out of town and we watched it in her. Yeah, I think I would give it a thumbs up. Um
I've heard it's really gory.
it oh yeah. It's super super gory, but there was some like really creepy pieces of it. It wouldn't be like my tops, but I mean it was enjoyable. Like we enjoyed it. Um do you know a movie
See,
that
like
really
right
messed
now,
me
even
up,
talking
which
about,
is
I forgot about
random?
Hereditary.
I've
Like, we're
never
talking about
watched
this
it.
right now, and I forgot about Hereditary.
Have you watched
What?
As Above, So Below? This is getting way off topic, but that movie is freaky
I've heard good
AF.
stuff. Not
So you
seen it
should
yet.
watch
I've
it
heard
too.
good stuff.
Creepy.
So we're going to have to make a list and compound a list.
Yes,
Anybody
we are.
that's listening, watching, if you've got lists, suggestions, top threes, anything that you want, I would love to see anyone and everyone's top three because I know they're so widely differing.
Which is
And
awesome
like
to see. I love that.
I was talking to the girl at work the other day. She's incredibly into exactly what you're into. Like, she loves The Exorcist and spiritual demonic possession, stuff like that. So I know her list is going to not have the thing on it like mine. So I would definitely love to see how different lists compare and contrast. So definitely hit us with those. But above and beyond that, still to this day, I will say this for the next hopeful 30 or 40 years of my life. Recommendations. There's so much
Always.
stuff that people don't know exists. Shudder is one of those portals that just kind of gives B-rate movies that really should have a brighter light of day, kind of unearths some of those hidden gems. There's stuff all over the place. Foreign film. Like, I keep one of my big throwbacks or call outs, I guess you'd say, all the time is Martyrs. I like a lot of people talk about Martyrs, how much they love it, stuff like that. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, but we're working towards that. Um, Anything else you got for anybody before we book it on out of here?
Nope, I don't think so. Just thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing everybody's recommendations and lists.
What are they supposed to leave on for us?
Always leave on that nightlight.
Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. We shall see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.